Do you want to do more than follow orders? Think outside of the box and manifest your dreams? Then you've come to the right show. Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a Gold Star daughter, veteran spouse, and entrepreneur. For Season 8, we continue our wonderful partnership with the Rosie Network to highlight motivational stories of personal growth, financial awareness, and autonomy in our military community. We're also excited to showcase our partnership with Blue Water Advisors. Well, we have a lot in store for you this season, so let's get started. All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode here at Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth in partnership with the Rosie Network and Blue Water Advisors. I want to remind you that even though I keep saying these names, if you haven't looked them up by now, if you haven't looked up these three companies, look them up. Once again, that's companies, U.S. VetWealth, that's my company, with my husband, which you hear more about on Thursdays, BT Dubs. And the Rosie Network, a nonprofit that focuses on military-connected people who are pursuing entrepreneurship, and Blue Water Advisors, which is all about career progression for military retirees who are seeking employment in post-military life. All amazing companies, if I do say so myself, all amazing resources, and a lot of what they offer is free. So you're welcome. All right, let me go ahead and dive into today's conversation. Opening question for you all. Okay, here it is. What role does financial literacy play in your personal growth and family dynamics? Well, for Shane Davis, the founder and CEO of Culture of Finance, believes that understanding economics and finance is crucial in life as it reflects on one's culture and values. Shane shares the importance of teaching kids about finance in a way that prepares them for the digital world and the new financial systems. He shares his unique teaching style and his experiences working with the homeschool community, including his son's journey in financial literacy. From early lessons in economics to creating engaging financial education tools, listeners can learn about the power of intentional living and the transformative impact of financial education. If you want to reach out to Shane as you're listening to this conversation, check out the show notes of this episode. You can also visit our website, holdingdownthefortpodcast.com, do a search of our episode number, episode 194, that's 194, with Shane Davis, and you'll be able to find his contact information on there. I thoroughly enjoy this conversation. I also enjoy the fact that I get to talk to other people in the personal finance industry, as my husband and I are also in the personal finance industry. And I just always love to hear the different niches, the different ways of teaching financial literacy. And so I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Shane, again, Shane Davis, on Cultivating a Culture of Finance, Lessons in Intentional Living and Financial Literacy. Feel free to hang out with me after the conversation in the post commentary after the outro music, if you so please. All right, enjoy listening or watching because this episode is available on YouTube, which the direct link is available in the show notes of this episode. Enjoy. All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode here at Holding Down the Fort. I am really excited to be speaking today with Shane Davis, who is the lead instructor for Culture of Finance. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for people that are getting to know you for the first time, like me, first question I always like to ask is, give us a quick snapshot of your life. What does it look like? I already have an idea. I kind of hinted at it offline, but I want you to tell our audience what your life looks like right now.
Cool. So I'm a husband, father of 4, 3 boys, 1 girl, homeschool parent of 2 kids. That's it. Yeah. And a founder and CEO of a company. So
no big deal. Well, first and foremost, I'm so fascinated by you being a stay-at-home, or not stay-at-home, but like a homeschooling parent of 2 kids and being a present father. And part of where I come from is, my dad was in the military and he was gone all the time because of deployments and all that. And I respect the service. And, hence this is why I do the show, because I always want to honor the sacrifice that goes to serving our country. And so to hear your story, or to hear the initial start of your story here, tell us a little bit about what it's like what homeschooling means for you, because coming from public education myself, I definitely can see a difference between people who went to public education like myself versus homeschool kids. So tell me, what is it for you to have this opportunity to homeschool your kids?
The first thing that comes to mind, if I think about it, if I had to sum it up in one word, intention. We are very intentional about everything that they learn, their experiences, their network, who they're around, just intention, and it's kind of been a theme that's played out over the past years for us. To me, we're still new. We got into homeschooling, right around COVID. So, what was that, 2019?
Yeah.
So far. But yeah, that's been our journey so far. Just, lots of bumps, lots of bruises, but yeah, we're seeing the results, and it's really.
Yeah, I think you're definitely not the first person who's told me that they started to homeschool during COVID. And I think from what I've heard, when, not to knock on public education, because I did go through it, so I can say these things. But I remember some parents had mentioned to me that they started to, I guess, witness how their kids were taught in school via Zoom. And they realized that their kids needed a different kind of attention. And therefore, they switched to homeschooling. So do you feel like you had a similar experience with that?
Yeah, my son was bored. He was bored. I mean, bored out of his mind.
Yeah.
They're talking about things, and he's like, "We've already covered this." It was just an opportunity to see what was probably happening in the school, right? There's the homeschooling. You can't really hide things. If you're not paying attention, well, you got mom and dad to put you on the right track, right? So it's just paying attention, being able to see what's happening and adjusting, making those small adjustments to whether it's, hey, let's go outside for a little bit, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
Let's head to the park. I laughed yesterday. It was raining. The kids were out jumping in puddles. That was the thing. They wanted to jump in puddles. So
I love it.
We look at that as a part of the homeschooling experience. There's a lesson to be learned in everything. So that's the approach we take.
Yeah, I love that. And I do love the word that you used earlier, intention. And I think that if my parents were so fortunate to have had the time and resources to homeschool, I feel like they would have. I think I would have been a lot better being homeschooled, honestly, because my lifestyle today is very much built around what works best for me. But it took me a long time to give myself permission to say, this is how I learn. For example, I'm more of an auditory learner. So if you give me a textbook, I just can't this is why I podcast, because I learn through conversation and through, even with audiobooks and all that. But in school, you get these thick textbooks, and I probably highlight the same line a number of times in different colors and I still won't get it. But if you have a conversation with me about something, I can learn. And so I just think it's a beautiful thing to come across parents such as yourself that are so fortunate and have the means to homeschool, because I think it does make a difference. Not saying that, the kids are better than public education kids. It's just different. I noticed that there's, like you said, there's more intentionality. It seems that the kids grow up to be more intentional. I think about my friends at church, for example, a lot of them had been homeschooled. They're more intentional. They're attentive. They give you undivided attention. They give you eye contact. And I'm just so fascinated by that, So anyway, I just wanted to press on that just because it's amazing for you to be in a position to homeschool your kids, and let alone, being a very present father. I personally believe that's going to make such an impact on them.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, you hinted a little bit about your son, and I wanted to ask I wonder if this is the son that got into finance like you. And if so, tell me the story of how you got into finance and when your son noticed your interest in finance and got into it as well.
Oh boy. Wow. Where do I start with that?
Long story.
It's been a lifelong journey. I'd say a lifelong journey, one tested through fire. Some of these things you learn as you grow. I had a lot of great examples, so many great examples. My grandfather, my uncle, my uncle bought me my first investment book, one of Warren Buffett's books.
Wow.
And, I I absorbed it. I think I was in my early teens, There were times in life where I had these moments where I was learning, learning about finance and just about, economics in general. First big one for me was economics course. I took a course on economics, you mentioned undergrad, me too. I am a undergrad student and I failed economics. I failed. I didn't know what was going on. I'm opening the book, kind of like you, like opening the book, reading, thinking, okay, so this is what, and then I'm hearing and what I'm reading, they're totally different things.
Yeah.
I'm lost. I'm confused. For the class, I drove 2 hours one way to get to class. So I'm tired. It's an evening class. And, and this is a couple of years after being out of the service. And so, there were so many issues going on, medical, mental health, just didn't understand what was happening. And I failed that course. And that course ultimately was the course that put me on academic probation. And so it was a big hit for me. It was a huge hit. And so eventually I, dusted myself off and went back to school, this time community college. And I took an economics course. And the teacher that I had brought everything to life. I could understand the information. It was real to me. And I had so many questions. And she gave me space to actually speak, In other courses, I grew up in public school as well. The mindset of sit down, sit in your seat, raise your hand only when you need to, that kind of space. My hymn was always going up. It was always going up in this class, and she would answer my questions. And it got to the point where it was like, oh, here goes Shane again with another question. But I left that class loving economics. Absolutely loving it. Took another one of her classes. Didn't even need to. Took another one because I said, hey, why not? This is great. Like, I love it. And that was the change for me. That was the change. I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to learn more, understanding how economics plays into life. And ultimately, I realized, okay, economics is your culture. It's your culture. Where you spend your money really speaks a lot about who you are.
Yeah.
And, what's important to you in your life. And that was a big change for me. And so my son, you said, he got to see all of this, he was growing up young, watching me study and talk. And we'd have all these great conversations about, finance. Not so sure how much he enjoyed it at the time, right? 6-year-old listening to dad talk about investment strategies, budgeting, but we made a game out of it. I created some finance cards and we would go through and I'd watch him get it. He would just absorb it. And we would have these great conversations that, end up being an hour long, and he's just sucking it all in. I was able to bring it to life like my teacher did for me. And so he said, well, Dad, can I get involved in this? Like, can I do? I'm like, sure, of course you can. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Wow.
Opened up a brokerage account for him.
Wait, how old was he when you opened up a brokerage account?
I think he was 9.
I love it. That's
9.
Awesome. That's amazing.
He was 9. And so we would, so I'm like, oh, well, you're an investor. Now you got to listen to the investor calls. You got to know what you're getting into here.
Yeah.
And so at 9, here we are sitting at the dinner table, listening to Tesla earning calls, and having, nerding out about, oh, this music is interesting. Yeah. Dancing at the, at the dinner table about the music and, listening to Elon Musk and all his crazy antics, it became a part of our home. It became something we did. And my friends and family saw it, and they thought this was the craziest thing. This is amazing, and they would come to me and say, hey, can you talk to our kids? Can you talk to our kids? And that was really the start. That was the start for us.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm just taken by your story, and you talk about how you failed like economics in school, and it reminds me of when I went to school. I first majored in psychology, and I remember I took my first psychology 101 class, and it was like at the time it was like a hybrid class. It was the first hybrid class they were testing. I was like meet half in person and half online, and in the end, it was the first class I ever got an F in. at the end of my freshman year, I was also on academic probation. But then on, I've always had a fascination of psychology and primarily just understanding people. So I feel like that has shown up in like different ways. But I really love how, you gave yourself a second chance, go to community college, like learn economics from a different teacher. And it just comes to show that who you learn from really makes all the difference, and it's great to hear that that teacher really brought economics alive, for you. And I really love your take on culture of finance, because you're right. I think you can tell a lot of like who people are based on where they spend their money. And also with your company name, Culture of Finance, I know that culture is an acronym. Would you like to break that down for us?
Oh my gosh, don't put me on the spot. Okay.
I have it in front of me if you want me to read it to you.
I will admit, I do have my website. So culture stands for comprehensive understanding of long-term thinking for universal responsibility and economic matters. And in each section, we break down what does that mean, right?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the acronym, I won't say it again, but each element goes through kind of an overview, right? Of what, when I think of the word comprehensive in finance, financial literacy is comprehensive. It covers budgeting, saving, investing, debt management, and there's so many other elements. And so, at Cultural Finance, we believe in a holistic approach, right? And we take into consideration all of these different factors.
Yeah, I really like that because, again, when I think of finance, it's funny because like my husband and I work in finance in a different niche. And I just think that for the average person, including me, despite working in finance or working in the marketing side of finance, I often think that finance is dry. It's like you just think numbers. And so tell me about how you bring it to life, like how you made it fun for you and your son. And then, of course, that caused a ripple effect to everyone else that knows you and wanted to teach the same with their kids. So tell me about that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. Finance is really dry. I will admit, I am not special. Finance can be really, really dry. But for me, it's seeing how the joy of the connections that come out of finance, right? So money is everywhere. Money is everywhere. It's involved in so many things. You can't do anything in this world without money.
Oh, yeah.
But money is a form of a relationship. When you spend time somewhere and you need a bottle of water or something like that because you didn't bring it, you really stop and think about, well, where am I going to get it from? Some people do. Some people don't, right? Some people, it's just, hey, there's a corner store, and maybe that corner store charges you a little bit more. Well, how much do you have? How much money do you have? How long does it take you to make that? Understanding that, okay, well, where I go and what I do and how much time I spend, if I really stop and think about that, I can create some cool new avenues that give me more time back.
Yeah.
And time back is freedom. Time back is freedom. For kids, time back could be, hey, that means I get to spend more time playing games. That's really what that means, right? That means more time on Fortnite, more time on Roblox, or like whatever the game is, right? More time during that. But as you get older, more time means more time with my friends, more time with my family, more time traveling, more time doing whatever it is you're interested in. And that, I take my students on that journey. I want them to understand that time is finite. That's the only thing in life that's truly, truly finite.
Yeah.
And so going along and kind of discovering how it works, how this affects you. In today's society, finance is a really delicate topic. One of the latest U.S. Federal Reserve surveys talks about how 4 out of 10 Americans don't have the funds to share and to handle an unexpected $400 expense. That's really, really major. And so helping the students understand that, it's the financial decision making, how that frees up time, how that gives you more, all sorts of stuff, right? All kinds of stuff. That's fun. Yeah.
I like how you talk about the importance of getting your time back. and how money can do that for you. Last year, my husband and I finally decided to ask him like, hey, can we have a house cleaner? Because I have to clean up after my pets and him. I mean, I don't have to, but I take it upon myself. And I got to a place where I was like, okay, I don't need to like tell myself this narrative that I am fully responsible for being the house cleaner. And the thing is like, we're doing all right in life. And so I finally asked him like, hey, could we get a house cleaner so that I can get my time back, so that my time isn't focused on cleaning things. And I have to tell you, it's made a world of difference to know that like, yeah, I'll do the dishes, I'll do the laundry, I'll do the basic things on, the daily things. But for like the heavy cleaning, like the tub and the kitchen and, all that, it's just so nice to know that someone's going to come like once a month to do that. And it opens up my time to think of other things. And more importantly, to not be stressed about taking that on as my responsibility. So that's what comes to mind for me in regards to like buying my time back. And so I'm curious to know, I know that with Culture of Finance, you offer a number of 12-week virtual classes. I'm curious which ones so far have, let's say, been the most popular as of late. And what do you teach in those classes?
I'm glad you brought that up, because now it's, this semester for us, we've taken a whole new approach. Wanted to really look at everything and say, how can I make this better? And for a lot of our families, it's time, right? It's time, how much time we dedicate to it. And so we completely tore it down and said, hey, we're going to go month to month. We're going to go monthly, and we're going to offer a comprehensive coverage everything. So if you want to keep your kids in the class for the entire year, we'll cover everything, all topics from, your financial literacy basics, right? Understanding things like what is money, breaking all of these specific areas down to investing, right? It gives the ability for our students to really absorb all that information. Another change we had was I've now partnered with a teacher who's also a finance guy. He wrote a great book called A Young Economics Guide. And MBA in economics, guy's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. But we talked, and it was like, why haven't we known each other longer? Why aren't we the best friends? He brings these topics to life. And we're talking, extremely in-depth conversations around things like utilization, usury. We just break down some topics that are really fun. Debt management. And I'm super excited to be able to offer that this year.
I like the monthly thing. It kind of reminds me of like a monthly gym membership where it's like you have access to all these things and then you can cancel anytime. But for people who, stay longer, they get all the services, access to things. And I think that's a wonderful shift. And it sounds great to hear that you've partnered up with someone. I'm curious if that was a mental shift from running your business on your own to like welcoming someone to do it side by side with you. How is the mental shift from running your business by yourself to, sharing a part of that with someone else?
Our relationship has been great. So to be able to offer, his materials and his book almost exclusively through this program it's such a cool thing to me. It's such a cool thing. It's allowed me to really focus and say, is there a way for me to offer this information to a younger age? I've looked at 5th grade as being the perfect time frame, right around that age where kids are starting to understand it. Maybe they're asking for money for Christmas instead of, this shiny little toy. They're definitely getting it on the gaming side. Where there's transacting all the time. And so getting them at that age before they develop those financial habits was my approach. But now with this almost kids-like book where we can have these conversations about things like goods and services, understanding what that is in a fun and playful way, I think that's going to really open some doors to offer these courses to kids as early as 3rd grade.
Yeah, I think that is so wonderful. I think about my first exposure to financial education, and it was when I turned 18 and I got all the credit cards in the mail. I'm sure a number of people can relate hearing this and all the offers, all the low interest rates or whatever was in it. And that really, I'm going to say this sarcastically, that really set me up for success. And and I really had to learn later in life how bad credit cards were, at least the way that it was impressed upon me, and how it was used and all that stuff. And so I think it's wonderful to teach kids at a young age. I am curious to know, because you are going to be presenting something to them differently than, let's say, what society teaches about finance. And I'm curious, what is that unique lesson, that starting lesson that you want to impress upon, kids as young as, 5th grade or 3rd grade?
Wow. The approach that I take is definitely different than the mainstream approach that most people receive.
Mm-hmm.
I do my best to think about how to approach the 5th grade kid in a way that's going to allow this information to last for 20 years,
mm-hmm.
30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching checkbooks that's not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to do it. And that's, a lot of people still teach that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of parents that I speak to, they're ready for their kids to learn how to balance the checkbook, but they don't live in that world. They don't live in that world. They live in a digital world. World, and preparing them for what's to come, the new financial systems,
mm-hmm.
is paramount.
Yeah.
And so that's what I enjoy.
I mean, that's very true, because I do have a $20 bill like in the back of my phone here. I have like a wallet phone cover thing, but I don't pull it out because I have Apple Pay. For me, it's just kind of like those, like I have it here just in case I need to pull out cash. But other than that, everything is digital. Everything I can just even like tap my credit card when I go to a coffee shop. And so I feel like there could easily be a disconnect with what money really is and how far it can go. And even if you see like, I think it's interest rate. I feel like I'm getting I think I'm getting it wrong. But yeah, even if interest go up, like rather than like, it's like you could just see that just as a number. It's hard to like connect with that if it's just a number on the screen. And so I think that's a very interesting thing to tackle, because that is the Gen Z reality now. The Gen Z, even millennials, like we saw that transition from checkbooks to cash to credit cards to now, in my case, like Apple Pay or Venmo, like PayPal, like we aren't touching our money anymore. So I think it's a great thing to explore on your end and tackle it in that way. I'm curious, who have you found so far to be reaching out to you? I mean, I know it started with friends and family and all that, but has it expanded to like a certain demographic?
The homeschool community has been amazing.
Mm.
Absolutely amazing. I have such a great relationship with them, and teaching students who learn differently.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to appreciate the information, constantly challenging me every day, always challenging the style in which I teach. They'll challenge my information. Welcome it. I love it. In my class, I don't teach like a lot of other people. If the conversations are going to change and be derailed, hey, let's follow it. Let's follow it. As long as the information is about finance, we're going to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
We had a great conversation. You mentioned credit cards. We had a great conversation about credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
We had a wonderful conversation. Again, these are 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. And, it was very simple. My parents said credit cards are awful. You should never get a credit card. And so, my son just, casually mentioned, well, why are they, horrible? What's so bad about a credit card? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
And we went on a nice little rabbit hole down, just discussing what a credit card is, why people use stuff. Are there any benefits to it? Are there, is it just bad? Like what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any protections, right? Like, hey, if I go to McDonald's and, they don't want to give me a refund because, I don't know, for some reason, right? Like something bad happened. They dropped my food and,
I don't
whatever.
like my fries. My fries are cold. My fries are cold. I want a refund.
Right? You're like, I want a refund. They're like, sorry, bub, you use cash, buy, whatever. Well, with a credit card, it's not your money, it's the bank's money. And you can dispute that transaction. So yeah, there's just having these type of conversations, it's like, well, wait, what? You can do that? It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. And, I'm looking forward to this year where, not only do I get to talk to the kids about finance, but also work with adults.
How's that like?
That is fun. It is, my goodness.
Wonderful.
Workshops are, I'm so excited because there are a lot of, finding new ways to introduce these topics and conversations to adults and really stressing the idea of how finance is your culture.
Yeah.
And the habits that you have, you will pass down to your kids. And so how, if there are areas or topics or things, and, at no fault of anybody, right? We're kind of what we learned was what our parents taught us,
right.
And what their parents may have taught them. And so a lot of times those conversations never really happened. Finance tends to be a very delicate topic for a lot of people, a lot of hurt and a lot of pain associated with it. And so finding an opportunity in an area and space that, I consider safe, where we're able to say all the things and, doggone it, I don't like bankers. Or, well, let's talk about that. Why don't you like bankers, right? What's wrong with this? Let's go through and talk and discuss these things and let's learn a little bit.
Yeah. It sounds like you do a little bit of therapy. You're like the financial therapist. Like, you don't like credit cards? Let's unpack that. Where does that feeling come from? Or, so I think that's great. Like, I was actually just started re-listening to Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I think it's a classic for anyone that is like just looking to kind of open up your eyes and see how the lower to middle class look at money versus like the upper class. I very much recommend it to anyone. But he made a point there that you reminded me of. And he said like early on in the book that unless like you seek out financial education, like your parents teach you. And like you said, they may not like verbally teach you, but they'll show you in their actions. They'll show you in how they, what they pay for and all that stuff. So I think it's just a beautiful thing that there are, people like you who are providing that additional or that outside education, because otherwise it is really hard to get access to. Like, I only feel like I know now because, my husband and I, we work in finance and I just kind of learn off of them and their everyday talks about money. But for most of my life, my parents, and I love them, my parents they showed through their actions what they valued is what I'm saying. So I want to shift gears here a little bit now that we know about the culture of finance. Part of our connection today is because you went through the Service to CEO program with the Rosie Network. So tell me about the business side of culture of finance. I feel like in a way you might probably know more than most just because you are in finance, so tell me about that and creating this into a business.
It's been so free.
I love that.
It's been so freeing. I have, I come from finance. I come from the finance industry as well. Worked in a large, one of the big four. And that's how I got my background. And I focused in digital assets. So most people know that as cryptocurrency. So I would, that's my education, professional, right? So it was I love it. Absolutely love that space. But the one thing I mentioned earlier, one thing you can't get more of is time.
Yeah.
You can't get more time. And being intentional about my time, culture of finance was the door that opened so much for me. And the Rosie Network really helped me outline how I could really take this business somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. It's been such a great process. We're going through our, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. Don't quote me on that. But going through each week and hearing from, industry professionals about things like law and, discussing things with business consultants and just working with other professionals who could say, hey, change that. That didn't look right. So much fun.
Yeah. I'm curious if you had the name culture of finance coming into it, or did you discover that along the way of the Service CEO program?
I had that. I had that name. It was real shaky for me. It wasn't polished, but with time, it came to mean more to me. It really came to mean so much more. I started to see connections to things to finance and culture, and just, I always had this mindset that it's like a 360-degree thing. It encompasses everything.
Yeah.
Even down to my logo, the circle is intentional, like it's everything is finance is everything. It's your culture. And so, my culture doesn't have to be your culture, but in finance, we all share it. In finance, we all share it. And so let's talk about it. If you don't have one, right? If maybe your parents or grandparents didn't teach you, let's develop one. Let's develop a culture and see where that takes you, because your culture should benefit you in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets me to think about my friends, or one in particular. I won't say their name, but this person, works the typical like 9 to 5, and very often they'll like just give reasons as to why they can't do certain things and can't. And like, for example, we have an event coming up in March, and I'm willing to just like pay for it, because to me, it's worth the investment to pay for something for convenience, wherein my friend prefers to, let's say, volunteer to get like free access to this. And I just think like, I remember like volunteering my time for free to get access to this ticket, and the time it took to like volunteer and the mundane task. Like I did, like, for example, just imagine like scanning tickets for like 6 hours straight, and I'm just like, yeah, exactly. It's like, I would rather just pay for the ticket than to like volunteer for free. And so where I'm going with the story is that particular friend of mine, even though they're willing to volunteer for free, they have, like Shane, they have like a whole shoe rack of like Jordans. Okay. Like the things they pay for, they buy tickets to concerts, and it's like they spend lavishly on, materialistic things and other forms of entertainment. But when it comes to this particular event, they're like, no, I would rather like volunteer. And I'm just kind of, I just don't understand like the set of priorities. And then it ties into like, oh, well, because like, oh, this is like the 9 to 5. Like sometimes I make comments of like, oh, I can't do certain things because 9 to 5 life. And I just feel like the priorities aren't there. And I don't understand the priorities is what I'm saying. And it gets me to think of like, because of my knowledge of finance today, like I've learned the difference between like paying for something versus investing in something. Like nowadays, this year, I tell myself like, this is worth the investment, because like, rather than look at the cost, I look at the investment. And I think it's just like learning how to talk about money differently. And like, why is it that you would rather, spend hours doing this, like volunteering for free, doing in this mundane task, but you don't think twice about buying some really good high-end Jordans, let alone have a whole shoe rack of it. You know what I'm saying with that? It's like, I'm not judging. It's more about like an observation. And I think it's also like I don't know if it's like a lack of financial education, but I do feel like it's kind of like has something to do with maybe not being intentional about priorities. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. And so I'll speak about myself.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed with him is there was a mindset shift. My son doesn't get no allowance. He doesn't get no allowance. Sorry. But he can do things to earn money. He definitely can do things to earn money. And so that's how we approach things. And so, he has a bank account. He also has a credit card. He also has a credit card in his name.
Wow.
And so when he goes out with his friends, I give him his credit card. Son, this credit card does not have a limit, but whatever you rack up, you have to pay, and I will send you an invoice. And so, yes, an
Love
invoice. He gets an invoice. So,
it's amazing.
For him, when he goes out, it's okay. How much is this? How much is that? Okay, because I have to pay for this. I have to pay for this. He's not it's a mindset shift. So he's very intentional about where he spends his money and what he spends his money on. If the guy is going to go out and, eat at some restaurant or something like that, but, they're coming home in a couple of minutes, he's like, mom's got food at the house. We could just eat the food at the house. I think she's got pizza over there. Like, you guys want to do that? That's the change for him. Instead of, his bank account and a credit card, he also has an investing account. Instead of buying, like, you mentioned Jordans and things like that. And instead of buying that, he's going to buy a couple shares of Nike.
Wow.
He's going to buy a couple shares of
Yes.
Nike. Or, he's for his birthday, Meta has a VR headset. Or, for a lot of people, Facebook still Meta. So he says, hey, well, I think I'll get a couple of shares of Meta before I'll work to save up for this. But, the price is actually pretty good right now. I think I can afford a couple of shares.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing
let's make
son.
that purchase. So but that came with a shift.
Yeah.
Understanding that if time is limited, how can we use our time to use our money to make us more money, which in total over time saves us. It provides more time for us. It's an opening. And so that's the approach that we went, for my daughter who is 6, we found an easy way of saying, get money, don't spend it. That was her, like, that's her mantra, get money, don't spend it. Now she's a little princess, so she's going to spend it. But the mindset is get money, don't. So, we find different ways to teach and educate and make these things real. Being an investor kind of changes you a little bit when you understand, oh man, how much money did I make last month? Like, in returns. And, of course, the market goes up and down, and that's kind of a part of it. But when you step back, when you're kind of worried, when in doubt, just kind of zoom out a little bit and see where you started and where you ended up. So that's changing the shit.
Yeah, I'm just like incredibly impressed that your son is playing with the stock market at 9 years old. That's just wild. Like, I think you have your retirement plan already laid out for you, because your kids sound like they're going to be it sounds like they're going to be set up for success when it comes to their financial life later on. And, I just think that's wonderful. And obviously it's made an impression amongst like friends and family so much that it's really snowballed into what you have today with cultural finance. So I just think it's awesome, Shane. And I could tell you have a lot of fun. I feel like you put the fun in finance. That's what you do. But yeah, I feel like I asked all the questions I was actually really curious about. I wanted to know if there's, anything else you want to share so far that I haven't asked you yet.
This was a great conversation.
Oh, good.
I wish I could say that there was more. I look at culture of finance as a stepping stone to something greater. Culture of finance will always be there. But when I look at the holistic approach of the business, I want more than just the education. I want to be able to provide legal, like actual investment advice. That, when you play in that space, this is a regulated space. I am not a financial advisor, so at no point in time right now did anything I say constitute investment advice. I'll give that little caveat.
That's a good disclaimer there. Yeah.
But I'd like to change that. And so that, if that is something that, there's an interest for, I'd say stay tuned.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I have one more question to ask just because you're a Marine vet. And I'm curious if your experience in the military, like your understanding of finance then, is different than it is now.
In the Marine Corps, I will say I was pretty disciplined when it came to finance.
Nice.
The numbers were a lot smaller. So it was a lot more. There wasn't as much play. There definitely wasn't as much play.
Yeah.
I was one of the few who had a car back when, a lot of people didn't. And so I learned a lot. Learned a lot about credit cards, learned a lot about just income and expenses, knowing that even if you do have this income that comes in constantly, whatever you're spending it on, once it's gone, once that money's gone, that's it. You got to wait. So it was a good foundation to build upon. A lot of bumps and bruises, but yeah, I learned a lot in regards to discipline, financial discipline.
Yeah. I think that's great to hear, because often it's the conversation of living paycheck to paycheck, or like as soon as you get promoted, you just spend that bonus on something lavish, and turns out to be a liability more so than an asset. So it's just great to hear that you were very mindful of like how you spent your money and you were disciplined, and, a paycheck is a paycheck. It's handed to you every, like 2 weeks, but it's not going to grow. It's going to be the same unless, you get promoted. Right. And so, just very great. It sounds like you've had like a good grasp on money. Like you've been very mindful of your spending way back to your service. And it's just great to know that, like, I think the word of our conversation today is intention. You seem to have lived with a lot of intentionality, and it's reflected, or it's passed down to your kids. And now it's, through the other people you're serving through cultural finance. And so I'm just inspired by that. So thank you, Shane.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. Like, let me see my notes real quick. I don't think I have anything else to ask. I feel like this is a very good, full conversation. So yeah, so let's just wrap it up. Any closing thoughts before we go?
Thank you for the opportunity. And, I can't wait to come back and tell you more.
Yes, it'd be great. Yeah, I would love to eventually bring back guests on the show to see how they're doing with their business. So Shane Davis, thank you so much for being on our show here today. I really appreciated your time, your story. I think what you do is very inspiring. What you do for your family is very inspiring. And thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Jen.
Hey, this is your host, Jen Amos. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Holding Down the Fort by US VetWealth. Visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com to access the full show notes of this episode, including resources mentioned and bonus content. Once again, that's holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Lastly, stay after this outro music for something a little extra. Thanks again, and chat soon. Bye for now. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining me in the post commentary of this episode. I thought I would remind you all the reflection question that we asked you at the beginning of the conversation, which is, what role does financial literacy play in your personal growth and family dynamics? This is a very interesting question for me because my understanding of my education on finance, on personal finance growing up, it was interesting. I won't get into all the details, but what I will say is that I am really, really grateful to be working in personal finance, to be working with my husband, to be working with my team, and to just know that there's so much resources today on financial literacy, such as what Shane Davis is doing here. I especially love that he focuses on homeschool children, on the homeschool community. And it often gets me wondering, I don't regret my life and I don't regret how I got to where I am today. What I am curious about, though, is what my life would have looked like if financial literacy was taught at home in my upbringing. And so my hope is that when you listen to this episode, it got you to think about your own kids or your future kids if you're planning on having a family and the importance of financial literacy. I think that one of the books that had always made a strong impression on me is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And Robert Kiyosaki had mentioned that, and maybe Shane Davis also brought this up in our conversation, but we first learn about personal finance in our household. How our parents model personal finance to us is often our understanding of personal finance. And because personal finance isn't as accessible, I think, it's not a standard teaching in public education, you really have to seek it out, and otherwise you grow up with the impression that personal finance is what was taught in the household. So all that being said, I am just so grateful again for someone like Shane with Cultural Finance to really prioritize financial literacy for kids, So, all right, well, anyway, that is my reflection for today. I hope that this gives you time to reflect as well. Again, the question is, what role does financial literacy play in your personal growth and family dynamics? For me personally, financial literacy it's everything. it's everything. And maybe I'll talk about this more in Inside the Fort, which is our private podcast available for free when you join holdingdownthefortpodcast.com/portal. You can create a free membership account there, get access to all the good things, especially a deeper dive into my answer for this question: what role does financial literacy play in your personal growth and family dynamics? All right. Hope you join me there. Until then, we'll chat with you on Thursday. Bye for now.